Hi everyone, great to have you tuning in to this series of the Investor Talk. So in this episode, we have Simran here with us. To introduce, Simran is an accomplished healthcare professional with over 15 years of senior management experience across diverse geographies in Asia Pacific with expertise in genomics, medical devices, IVD, biopharma, and healthcare services. He has demonstrated skills in the areas of business operations, strategy, mergers and acquisitions, due diligence, change management, business development, and financial management of multitude market and regional businesses. So, Simran, can you start off by sharing more about yourself, your passion, and what sparked your interest in this health tech industry?
Sure. So, I think I have been in the healthcare industry, as you have mentioned, for more than 15 years. Healthcare has always been a key passion of mine. I think when I studied in the US, I studied in biomedical sciences. There was an area of key focus at that point in time. There was a lot of buzz around building up a biopolis and setting up of the biotech cluster and industry in Singapore, and I got really excited about that, and so started doing more in that field. So as I learned about biomedical sciences in NUS, I was given the opportunity to go for the NUS Overseas College program, and so I was part of the first batch actually that went to the Bio Valley, and so that was the first initiative in part of the NUS Overseas College program to start looking at the biotech cluster as a whole. So as I was part of that program, I went into the startup environment in the tri-state area, which is basically Philadelphia, Delaware, and New Jersey. And there's a lot of biotech companies and pharmaceutical companies in that particular cluster itself. So I learned considerably about entrepreneurship, specifically bio-entrepreneurship. Got a chance to interact and network with many CEOs in that space. Started to understand the trends that were emerging, what were some of the business needs, market needs that were there, and so got really excited and sort of maybe also got the entrepreneurial bug as was prescribed by the program itself. And so started a concept in terms of high throughput screening, and went through various business plan competitions, was part of the Wharton. I think we were semi-finalists in the Wharton competition, and then we were the best. Then we took part in Startup Singapore, which was the first time they did Startup Singapore, and we won. I think the best young idea or whatever award. And was the finalist. I think we were third overall in Startup Singapore, and then took part in the Lee Kuan Yew business plan competition and won that too. So that sort of started out that process. Did that for a little while in terms of my first foray into entrepreneurship. So there were lots of learning, very steep, and used a lot of my dad's money as well. maybe. Not so judiciously as I would have now, but nonetheless, that was a good learning in terms of understanding what entrepreneurship really means and how you actually can start up a business. Unfortunately, that didn't work out very well, and so we had to decide to wind that down and go into traditional businesses or traditional opportunities. So, but I still stuck very closely towards the healthcare industry because that was the passion that I had, and then went into consulting. Was in Frost & Sullivan and then IMS for a period of time. Headed up the Asia Pacific region for healthcare consulting, specifically in devices and healthcare services, and then moved on from there to Quintiles, which is which at that point in time was the largest contract research organization globally, and so was head of strategy for the region. As I came into the industry, I remember I used to provide a lot of consulting services to Quintiles, and my CEO at that point in time said that, hey, we are giving you a chunk of cash. Why don't you just come and join me and transform the business internally? It's cheaper than hiring the company itself. And so I came in and was tasked to grow the business from I think at that point in time they were about a $500 million company to get to $1 billion in 5 years, and for Asia Pacific. And so that was a huge challenge, and I worked through to transform the business, and that gave me exposure to different Asian markets. So Korea, China, Japan, Taiwan, India, all of those businesses, and trying to transform them. And then through that, decided that medical devices and diagnostics was still a big passion of mine. And then I created the entire division for medical devices and diagnostics for Quintiles. So Quintiles used to focus very much on biopharmaceuticals only in terms of development services. And so then we started the entire division for devices and diagnostics. And so that was interesting, and ran that business for a couple of years, got it to about 100 million in terms of revenues, and then decided that I needed to get back to entrepreneurship, and moved into a company that had a very disruptive technology in cancer diagnostics. I was already doing clinical trials actually for liquid biopsies for their competitors. And so their founders came to me and said, why are you working for our competitors? Why don't you come and set this entire joint venture up? And so I was employee number one, and I set up the entire business in Singapore, headquartered in Singapore, for Guardant Health, Asia, Middle East, and Africa. This is a precision oncology company. It's a joint venture between Guardant Health Inc. and SoftBank. And so both of them came together, had a $50 million investment in terms of setting this entity up for Series A, and we were able to then build up our entire infrastructure here in Singapore as well as in Japan, and now we are probably the leaders in liquid biopsy, and very happy about that as well. So that's been my journey. I think I sort of covered the full gamut itself.
Yes, clearly you are really passionate in this health tech industry, right? So share with us what exactly is health tech, and why does it matter in this time and age?
Yeah, so I think health tech itself, it's a really broad categorization, right? I think you have biopharmaceuticals, you have medical devices, you have diagnostics as large pillars, and then now you have digital therapeutics. You have wearables. You have apps and wellness modules. So it's a whole cluster of different things. Ultimately, what it's intending to do is to use technology to alleviate diseases, or to uplift health and wellness across different populations. And so I think in terms of the lure of the industry itself, the lure of it is mainly that you are being able to make impact in people's lives. So what drives me, for example, in cancer diagnostics is because we know that cancer at the core is a genomic disease, and so unless you are looking at the genomic profiling of the cancer patient, how do you appropriately treat that patient? How do you actually give a treatment to that patient that is going to be most beneficial to that patient? So you need diagnostics, right? And so that sort of drives me, because I think those people who are and people who are interested in making impact in lives of other individuals and the population at large, I think health tech is probably where you need to be.
Personally, I'm pursuing a major in life sciences, and I've been pretty interested in this area of health technology as well. And I read about some trends in healthcare industry, and the fact that this industry is becoming more consumer focused, meaning consumer are becoming more tech savvy, and organizations, right, like those traditional healthcare providers, they are kind of forced to innovate like never before. So to you, what can emerging startups in this industry do to really differentiate themselves?
Yeah, so I think there are specific areas and pockets where I think the healthcare industry typically healthcare industry takes it's pretty slow in technology adoption, right? You see the fact that the new waves of technology typically goes into other industries first and sort of debugs itself and creates use cases before it comes and gets applied into healthcare. It's just traditionally been an industry that is slow to adopt new technology. The reason is very simply because you're dealing with people's lives, right? So you need to make sure that you are really certain that that the technology is going to impact them in a meaningful way. The cost is not going to spiral out of control. There's going to be cost benefits. You are able to bend cost curves. You are able to bend mortality curves, and so those are things that are considered in healthcare, right? So where I think there are pockets of opportunities now is that I think the COVID situation has helped in terms of accelerating adoption across all industries, more so in healthcare, just because it's a health pandemic. And so the use of teleconsultations, for example, that has increased tremendously. We ourselves have gone into new teleconsultation, web education. We have looked at mobile phlebotomy services so that patients don't need to go into the hospital for a blood draw. They can do it in the comfort of their own home so that cross-infections are minimized. There's a lot more education on infection control, obviously with the pandemic. And then there's a lot more usage of data and AI in healthcare, right? So for example, even in our technology, a large chunk of what we have done is we have combined biochemistry, we have combined next generation sequencing, and then we have combined AI and machine learning, right? So the bioinformatics engine at the back end is the one that is driving the ability for us to look at all the genomic sequences of human DNA and be able to make sense what is really the mutations that are driving this particular patient's cancer. All right, and you're able to go through over 3.2 billion base pairs of DNA sequences and be able to come up with the alteration that is driving that particular cancer, and the sensitivity and specificity of the test is improved each time the AI program is run. And so those are opportunities that I see in healthcare, where I see there's a lot more applications for AI, and precision medicine as a whole will require that as a backbone in order to be able to be more impactful for the patients. We also see robotics, and there's a lot of focus in terms of being able to look at minimally invasive procedures so that there is better recovery times and better outcomes for the patients as well. And so there's a lot of focus on that. There's also a lot of focus with regards to digital therapeutics. So how are you combining a specific application, whether it's an app, whether it's a sensor, whether it's an algorithm, and you are combining that with a drug. And the reason why that is powerful is that now you have immediate feedback that is this drug impacting the patient positively? Is this drug having the right efficacy? Or is the dosing right and appropriate for the patient? You have a feedback loop that comes immediately. And then you are also able to now monitor the impact of the drug longitudinally for that patient as well, right? So is this drug having positive impact on the patient quality of life? Right, so those things become very interesting as well in terms of digital therapeutics. I think those are key trends that I see in AI and machine learning, in robotics, as well as digital therapeutics that are interesting. And if people are interested in coming into health tech from other industries or intending to create new startups, those will be areas where I think there's a lot of room for growth.
Yeah, in fact, I agree with you totally on that. And just now, one thing that you mentioned really stood out to me was that unlike other businesses in other industry, right? In this industry where healthcare delivery is concerned, there are like strict rules and regulations and policy changes. And in addition to that, new research papers are published like every single day.
Yep.
So how do you think startups in this industry can stay in the loop and be actively aware of all the happenings in this industry?
Yeah, so I mean, I think the critical point is ultimately who are your stakeholders, right? I mean, I think your stakeholders at the center should be the patient, and then the physicians that are attending to the patients, and then comes the other ancillary service providers, so the drugs, the devices, and maybe other therapies and diagnostics that are coming together to provide the appropriate care to the patient. So in order to stay abreast, you will need to be able to be into the ecosystem, right? So you will need to plug in. So, you know, I always hear engineers come to me and say that, hey, I've designed this device or this specific tool that can actually be really advantageous in this particular procedure. My first question to them is, have you ever spoken to the doctor that actually does the procedure? Because no point designing something without understanding the workflow. Because if that tool or that device does not go within the workflow of how a patient is diagnosed, how the patient is treated, and how the patient recovers, then it is meaningless, because you might not be solving a problem, you might be creating many others. And so that is an important part of it, where I think the first step for anyone to be understanding is of where the market need is, or where the opportunity is. You need to embed yourself into the ecosystem. You need to make sure that you are testing the market out and having conversations with the various stakeholders, whether it's the patients, whether it's the physicians, whether it's the biopharma companies, the diagnostic companies, or the device companies. You need to have those conversations to make sure that what solution you are provided, you are intending to do. Firstly, there's a market need. Secondly, there is an understanding that it will not disrupt the workflow.
So what you're saying is that you were the one who provide a service or a product in this industry. It is not just about your service and your product. It's back to the fundamental of businesses. What is the need of your the patients? How is the user going to use it, which is like the physicians, the doctors?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the fundamentals don't change. It's just that in the healthcare industry, the nuances are much greater, and so you can't say that this workflow is terrible and we're going to change it overnight. The problem is that workflow has multiple guidelines that are already there, and so for you to be disruptive will take a much longer time. So you need to think about how your product and your solution works within the current workflow, and then slowly and gradually work towards creating guidelines that will change that, right? If that's the intention. But in order for you to get into the market and to be one that has adoption, it needs to be addressing the market.
So one common thing that most advice that startup founders actually get, right, would be these two words: strike fast, meaning have an idea and strike fast. However, in this health tech industry, no matter how much startup founders actually understand the problem or how good their solution is, time to market is relatively long in this industry, given that there have to be trials and research have to be done. So by then, the market will most likely change by the time this startup really get there. So what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, so I think that's a common misconception, because people have that misconception that at least in the healthcare industry, right? I think other industries are different. The product cycle and product life cycle is different. Whereas in the healthcare industry, you don't have massive changes occurring very quickly, right? The reason is because it takes time for new products to come into the market. It takes time for adoption. It takes time for changing of guidelines. It takes time for there to be mass commercialization and market penetration. So that misconception occurs because people think that I have to spend that. Okay, I mean, I guess for biopharma it's longer, but for devices it's probably a bit shorter. In terms of 3 to 5 years, in terms of being able to do a proof of concept, do the clinical trials, get the data ready to get my product into the market with all the necessary regulatory approvals. And so, but they don't realize that doing that itself is an opportunity for you to engage the early adopters, the KOLs, you basically are seeding the market at that point in time and gearing up the market for your product, right? So there is actually a huge opportunity that you are able to already create the market demand before even the product comes into the market. And so that is what people need to start thinking about, right? I mean, I think the work occurs or the work for commercialization occurs simultaneously with R&D. And so I think that is the part that the health industry is able to provide to you. But I mean, comparatively to other industries types, so if you are thinking about the IT industry or social media or digital media industry or fintech per se, you're not going to have that short product cycles, right? I mean, and if that is what you're looking at, that you're going to be able to very quickly get a product to market and be able to see whether it works or not, then that is probably not possible in the health industry. But the long gestation time is actually for everyone, so it levels the playing field, right? And so in that way, if you have a good idea and you are doing the right things in terms of generating the right clinical evidence for market adoption, you are doing the right thing in terms of providing or engaging the right stakeholders, you are embedding yourself into the ecosystem. I think the any new disruptive technology is you are able to bring it to market very quick. You are able to bring it to market with relative impact, but you have to be in there for the long haul. I mean, I think that is the fundamental difference in the healthcare industry.
Right. In fact, that's why I feel that this conversation with you is very, very interesting, because unlike any other businesses out there, like wanting to start something in this health tech industry, you have to play by more rules than all the other industry out there. All right. So I have a last question for you here. So what do you see in NUS Angel Venture that actually interests you to be an investor and mentor of NAV?
Yeah, so I mean, I've already done lots of angel investing, and I mean, we had a group in Quintals. There was the 6 of us in management had our own angel fund and called Mad Dog Ventures, and so we have invested in already digital therapeutics companies, EMR companies, which we exited. So there was a Clinify, which got bought by Zulik Pharma, and then we are in other areas as well. So when I got this opportunity and when I heard about this opportunity for NAS Angel Ventures, I mean, it interested me because I was already doing angel investing. It was something that I already knew a little bit about, and I was already started mentoring a lot of companies, and so this was exciting. Plus, NUS alumni and giving back to NUS is always an interesting exercise itself. Part of the NUS Overseas College program, and was part of the entrepreneurial drive. It all started from NUS, so I want to be able to give that back. I think there are many good ideas that come out from NUS, and being able to provide guidance and mentorship to new startups is always exciting. And I think lastly is how the program has been structured. I mean, I think the people like you and others in NAV have done a good job in terms of creating a good structure, and I see more and more mentors coming on board, which means people are buying into the program, and so that's good, right? I mean, as more people come in, there's always more opportunities for matches, and hopefully we make this a very vibrant community.
Yes, thank you so much for the kind words. So, all right, thank you for sharing your thoughts and tips for startups, especially in this biotech scene, and something that, because in this industry, honestly, most of us are not very familiar. If any one of you have any other follow-up questions, feel free to send in your questions to our email address here, and also do connect with Simran on LinkedIn and reach out to him as well. So we have come to the end of the session. Thank you, Simran, once again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.